Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Politics after emergency 1977 general elections, opposition referendum on emergency. Save Democracy, Janata Party, Jayaprakash Narayan, leader, Congress for Democracy, Jagjeevan Ram was a leader, later merged party. Election results were total seats 552, 42, and Janata Party won 295 plus 35, and Congress only. Now, politics after emergency politics was that the emergency showed both the weaknesses and strength of the Indian democracy. It had exposed the timidity of the civil services and the police officers. It exposed the weakness of the judiciary. Also, most of the high court judges rejected habeas corpus petition and against detention without trial. The union ministers and the Congress MPs took pride in equating one person, Gandhi, the nation. Janata Party won the election, and reasons of emergency was the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayan, unity among non-Congress parties, and Congress won only 154 seats. Reasons were massive electoral wave against Congress in North India, and Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi were defeated. Congress retained many seats in South India. Impact of emergency was less in South India. Many of the middle caste from the North India moved away from Congress. And Janata government stiff competition for the post of the Prime Minister. Morarji Desai and Charan Singh Jagjeevan Ram. Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister, but struggle did not end it. Janata Party lacked direction, leadership, and a common plan. Reason for the first non-Congress government coming to power of the center in the north states where the Congress had become very unpopular because of access of the emergency. The Janata Party had a landslide victory because the reasons of the Janata Party coming to power were as follows: suppression of civil liberties, forced sterilization, opposition unity, economic discontent, and alienation of Muslims and Dalits from the Congress. And worst of all, Sanjay Gandhi resigned like a medieval autocrat, and gang of four, Sanjay Gandhi, Bansilal, Vidya Chauhan Shukla, and Om Mehta, became the most dreaded persons of the emergency regime, and they were arrogant, dictatorial, and completely insensitive to democracy with its norms. And what I say is like a legacy was also there between the elections of 77 to 1980. The party system had changed dramatically. And since 1969, the Congress party had started shedding its character. Split in Janata Party within 18 months, Morarji Desai lost majority, and you could see the headlines of Indian Express: Morarji Desai resigns as Prime Minister. Charan Singh government was formed, the government with the assurance of Congress support. Later, Congress withdrew support, and Charan Singh lost majority and resigned. The seven general elections in 1980, Indira's Congress may have suffered a blow in 1977, but the ecosystem was too strong. Owing to internal rivalry and unstable coalition, the Janata Party government collapsed. Lack of unity in opposition led to Indira Gandhi becoming victorious again, and Congress won 353 seats, whereas Janata Party was reduced to 31 seats, and its faction Janata Party secular got 41. 1980 elections lessons: government that are unstable and wholesome are severely punished by the people. Socialist and pro-poor policies and Indira Gandhi's leadership strengthened the Congress party. Indra Bulao, Desh Bachao. This was an emergency period and can be described as a period of constitutional crisis because it had its origin in its constitutional battle over the jurisdiction of. And the legacy of emergency was like non-congressism and the Congress and all other parties, and the Congress party now identified itself with a particular ideology and claimed to be the only socialist and pro poor party. And the Srimati Gandhi claimed to be raising the standard of life for the poor masses. The Tilak Janata Party's program was also towards poor farmers and the working classes. The issues of the welfare of the backward caste. Soon after 1977, general elections and assembly elections took place in several states. Janata government were formed in the North Indian states, and these election leaders of the backward caste like Ram Naresh Yadav and Karpuri Thakur had an important role to play. First Backward Classes Commission was appointed in 1953, and its recommendations were not implemented by the government. A second commission on backward classes, Mandal Commission, was appointed by Janata Party government in 1979, and it submitted its report recommending reservations for other backward classes or caste, OBCs in government services. The report remained incooperative for nearly 10 years after the submission. And the restoration of judiciary's independence was the Janata Party government took steps restoring rights of the judiciary. In fact, despite the rivalries between groups and personalities, the junta government made a notable contribution to Indian democracy. And if we talk about these democratic upsurges, like increasing participation of the people, the democratic politics in the country is broadly characterized and has democratic upsurge also. The first democratic upsurge could be attributed from 1950s till 1970, which was based on the participation of Indian adult voters to democratic politics, both at the center and the and falsifying the Western myth that the success of democracy requires modernization, urbanization, and if we say education and access to media. And during the 1980, as you have read, the increasing political participation of lower classes of the society, such as SC, STs, and OBCs, has been interpreted as second democratic upsurge. And this participation has made Indian politics more accommodative and accessible for these classes. And although the upsurge, if I talk about the upsurge, has not made any major change, and in the standard of living of these classes, especially Dalits, the participation of these classes into the organizational and political platforms gave them the opportunity to strengthen their self-respect and ensure empowerment in the democratic politics of the so the era of liberalization, privatization, and globalization from the early 1990s is attributed to the emergence of competitive market society encompassing all important sectors of economy, society, and polity, thus proving way for third democratic upsurge. Now let's revise the chapter and hope you all have understood the concept. What was the cause of tension between the executive and the judiciary in 1973? The post of the Chief Justice of India became vacant, and it had been a practice in appointing the senior most judge of the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice. But in 1973, the government superseded three senior most judges and appointed Justice A.N. Ray as the Chief Justice of India. This caused tension to rise between executive and judiciary. And when and why was the Shah Commission appointed? It was appointed in May 1977 by the Janata Party government. It was a commission of inquiry headed by Justice J.C. Shah, retired Chief Justice and the Supreme Court of India, to inquire into several aspects of allegations of abuse of authority, excesses, and malpractices, commit an action taken during the emergency, and explain the provision of national emergency. National emergency can be declared under the Article 352, and we have read a lot of things in national emergency, like it declared, it was replaced by term armed rebellion in 1978, so that it made again. Was the impact of emergency on newspaper and magazines? Yes, was electricity to all the newspapers offices were disconnected, and the freedom of press was taken away, and many journalists were arrested. Newspapers like the Indian Express and the Statesman protested by leaking bank spaces, and where items of being censored, while magazines like the Seminar and the Mainstream chose to close down, while many published through and introduction of Morarji Desai ji. He was a freedom fighter. He was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi, Chief Minister of the state. Subsequently, the Deputy Prime Minister from 1979. He joined the Congress. So, after the split in Congress, Morarji Desai became an opponent of Indira Gandhi and became the Prime Minister from 77 to 79. Under the Janata government, he became the first Prime Minister belonging to a non-Congress. How did Bangladesh crisis become a burden for Indian economy? During the Bangladesh crisis, 80 lakh people migrated to India and the crisis to war between India and Pakistan that further burdened the Indian economy. And Marxists, to do the current political and capitalism system, they picked a weapon and became an armed revolution against the answers. They began to take land from the rich landowners and give it to landless and poor. And why did Indira Gandhi promote the concept of committed bureaucracy? She wanted the loyalty of bureaucracy to the government and to her without condition. And how far do you agree that the proclamation of emergency in the federal distribution of power in India? During the emergency, distribution of powers was suspended. All the powers came into the hands of the central government because of the presidential rule or any other relevant answer or point. And these are the cartoon based question. What does this cartoon shows? You could see one is a group of people and one side only one person is there, and which election was fought to the slogan to save democracy, and by which political party? What do corruption, lawlessness, and violence imply? The cartoon shows Jay Prakash Narayan sitting on dharna order to save democracy, and 77 election was fought by Janata Party on the signs of the save democracy. And corruption, lawlessness, and violence imply that there was corruption in high places in the government, and there was no law and order, and violence was on the rise in the country. One more question. And when did cartoon appear in the newspaper and why? and identify the person behind Indira Gandhi and identify what does the political crisis stand for. Explain. This cartoon appeared for a few days before the declaration of emergency to capture the sense of impending political crisis. Then the Congress President D.K. Baru and political crisis in 77 made the party system in India look like two-party system, the Congress and the non-Congress, and to end one-party dominance and emergence, non-Congress party, Janata Party as an umbrella for others. Hopefully, you have understood the chapter. See you in the next chapter. Have a nice time.